Hey scrappers, if you're looking to figure out what materials you should sell this week or hold this week, now is the time to do it. Our weekly report is going to give you that information, up-to-date market news, pricing. Let's get right into it and we'll talk about it inside. Hey scrappers, Tom here, and today is Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. We hope you're doing well. Only 8 days until Halloween. Maybe I'll wear a Halloween costume next week. You never know. You know, my kids have been asking me to, so maybe you can give me some ideas on what to be going into the Halloween holiday. But what I can tell you is we haven't really been spooked by the markets at all. I mean, I've been looking at these markets, and here we are less than 2 weeks away from the presidential election, and they've been pretty solid. I mean, some people thought we were going to have sporadic markets, but they're pretty much very even keel, up and down, about the same amounts day to day. And we'll talk about some of these things, but we are live. We generally do this 11 a.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. So if you have any questions, please ask them, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, or any of the places that we're streaming. Ask those questions so we can get through them either today or we'll comment and answer them throughout the week. So let's talk about the markets, and let's talk about a metal that I've really been down on for a long time, but I finally read something that might give us a little bit of hope, and that is the steel markets. Now, steel has been really, really low. Average prices for light iron and average prices for your shred material, people have been bitching about it. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's been going up. It really hasn't. There's been no forward traction on it in months. If anything, there's been negative traction going into the end of the year. But I read an article that was talking about Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia is looking to do this project called the NEOM, N-E-O-M. And if I'm mispronouncing it, I apologize. It's called the NEOM project. If it comes into fruition, they said that they may end up needing 20% of the world's steel during the time that they're building this project. And this project is trying to build essentially a city, right, in the desert, if you will, in areas that haven't been built up before. And they want to have a huge building, but they want it to be long, and they want to have all these different pathways and people to live and businesses, almost like the Jetsons, right, where you just had all these kind of long buildings. But it was the first article that I've seen that gave me any type of strong promise to a large steel project that's going to be able to help the steel prices jump. Now, these aren't things that are going to be done tomorrow, and they're talking about starting it, and I believe they wanted it finished by 2035, or at least one of the big sections. But this could start to take a country that has billions of dollars from oil revenue, right, is a strategic partner for the United States, and it could start to consume steel. And it might not be today, right? I tell you about these things where it gives you kind of hope on forward thinking, but we may start to see these prices jumping in the coming years with a project like this taking place. Currently, what are we relying on? Regular steel consumption from auto mills across the country and the world, regular steel consumption out of India and Turkey, out of China, iron ore being mined out of Australia. These are normal things that are happening, but what we don't see happening is huge projects that need steel. In China, for instance, if you guys remember, over a year ago, we talked about Evergrande and how Evergrande? I think it was Evergrande. And they were talking about how they had a huge problem where they just stopped all of these projects being built in China. Now, we had never heard of these, but when you started to see the articles popping out, you saw dozens, if not hundreds, of unfinished buildings that needed some metals, but then stopped because funding ran out. So hopefully this is the first promising piece of news that will help the steel markets have an increase in a longer term perspective. In a shorter term perspective, we may start to see steel prices increasing if we start to see fuel and oil prices decreasing. Now, In 2 weeks when the election is over, the Democrats are going to continue to be pushing more electric vehicle and renewable energies, while the Republicans also do, but they're going to be pushing more oil and more gas production in the United States to be able to increase the production, decrease the prices, and that should help the market. So what we may start to see short term, it depends on the election in 2 weeks, but we may see markets staying the same. Or if we do see a changing of the guard, there's a chance that we do start to see higher steel prices, not this year, but probably the second and third quarter of 2025 after things really get rolling. So hopefully your steel prices have been growing a little bit, but they really haven't been that great. And I haven't seen positive news about them. I have access to a lot of different steel projects that really are just in a standstill because there's not enough money to offset labor rates and things like that. So the money's out there. I would continue to sell your steel as quickly as you get it in. I wouldn't be holding my rotors. I wouldn't be holding any of that. Sell your steel, get it out, and just continue to do. And if you want to save anything, your non-ferrous is where you're going to have a higher uptick right now. We'll talk about that later. Another positive sign of news, right? Let's go with the positive vibes here to begin the day. Catalytic converters. We've seen platinum. We've seen palladium prices going up. We've seen the average catalytic converter price increase. And if we could pull that up, please. We've seen the average price for other higher grade cats going up. Right? It's been nice seeing some of these markets actually increasing. I think that it's twofold. I think that people are looking at the election and saying, hey, what's going to happen if a Democrat wins? What's going to happen if a Republican wins? If Republicans win, you may start to see an easing of the EV mandates. That may push gas engines to have a bit of a resurgence, maybe more of a hybrid. Hybrids are a great thing for the catalytic converter industry. Think about it. We've talked about catalytic converters over the years. Which car has some of the most expensive catalytic converters on it? Toyota Priuses and other hybrid vehicles. They're trying to capture so much of that carbon that they generally pack more materials into those catalytic converters, increasing their value. So I would love nothing more to see an explosion of hybrid vehicles, increasing both the electric vehicle side, but also increasing the demand for catalytic converter metals. That would be a really positive thing. And that's something that I'm also hoping for, that we see a change in the next few weeks. But if we don't see a Republican kind of go into power, it won't shock me to see these catalytic converter prices sliding. And I really would consider just selling your cats as quickly as you're getting them in, opposed to kind of holding them longer terms. We have a question, Virginia?
Yeah, we have a question about spark plugs and getting bins.
Yeah, great. So Sandro Mirando, could you please send us bins so we can send you? I want to get a bucket for my spark plugs. Yeah. So over our cats, we're buying spark plugs, we're buying O2 sensors, and we provide free bins for these things. We send them to you in the mail with a prepaid label to send them back to us with zip ties. So please, thank you so much for reaching out to us. We will absolutely get you a bin sent out. And if anyone has questions about not just catalytic converters, but spark plugs, O2 sensors, we're buying those for the precious metals in them. We're providing free shipping on all OEM catalytic converters. And so I don't sound so pitchy, I'll move on to the next subject. Copper, right? So we haven't really talked about copper, but let's see what's happened week over week. We've seen the markets down slightly. Copper week over week is down a little over 2%. Not surprising, but I don't really care. I'm looking at copper prices and I'm super excited right now. We've seen copper prices stabilize for the bulk of 2024. And really these markets in the fourth quarter, the last quarter of the year, are still strong when traditionally the fourth quarter starts to weaken. Why do I say that? Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, all other holidays that happen around for different religions. The world goes into a bit of a slowdown. Family kind of kicks itself in. Material prices kind of recede a little bit. I'm good with these markets, though. Look at our national averages of Bear Bright, 343. And you can see some of these reported prices took a hit, right? They're climbing back a little bit, $3.84, $4, $2, $3.47, $3.50. At my yard, we're at $3.80 today. So, Rockaway Recycling has some of the higher prices from what I've seen overall. But, don't forget, post your prices out there. This way, what's happening and you get to see, look, we have New Jersey, California, New York, Maine, Nevada, Vancouver, Washington State. These are great, prices from different areas the last few days that just give us a better economic outlook into the scrap copper market. So please comment and let us know what you're seeing out there as well. Other news that I've been reading about, the Chinese right now had a stimulus plan that they talked about a few weeks ago. Okay. That gave the copper market a quick 25-cent jump. Now, since they announced that, I believe it was like $160, $180 billion, there hasn't been a lot of follow-up to that. And without follow-up, we're not going to be able to really know how they're going to inject that money. They talked about it, but they didn't do it. So here we are looking at the Chinese. Are they going to be having a strong boost to their copper? Are they going to be looking for things like zinc and iron ore? I think that they are also waiting for the U.S. election to be over, because a lot of world leaders, they want to be able to see who they're going to be dealing with. And with two very different candidates that have very different philosophies, it's kind of hard to use the United States as a bellwether when you don't know which way the gong is going to ding. So we're waiting on that as well. And of course, the Chinese are one of the, if not the largest consumers of all metals in the world. So it's just something else to think about. Now, I'm going to tell you something that isn't exciting when it comes to scrap pricing. I didn't share this article yet, but yesterday there was a few articles and stories released that talked about Arkansas. Now, I have never in 12 years of doing these recorded, live feeds or whatever, talked about Arkansas, but I am today. Now, the U.S. Geological Survey came out and they found enough lithium in the Arkansas area to supply not only the U.S., but the world with enough lithium. And it was something crazy. And I apologize because this is just from memory, for the next 20 years or something like that. So think about that. There's a chance that inside the United States, there's now enough lithium, once they start to figure out how to get it out, which is through a brine method, to power the entire world when it comes to lithium. Why is that important? Cell phones, laptops, rechargeables, renewables, right? We have renewable energy out there. You have solar panels. What are they trying to do? Have thousands, millions of batteries that get charged from the solar during the day, get drained at night and on off-peak times. And by having the lithium here in the country, that's a game changer, and I'll tell you why. Not relying on the Chinese for some of these rare earth alloys are one of the most important things that not only Republicans, but also Democrats have talked about when it comes to national security. How's the recycling going to happen? That's still yet to be seen. And that's one of the things that I have people researching currently, because you need to know how to recycle this stuff. And I need to know how to recycle this stuff. How do we handle it? How does it not catch on fire? When you look at electric vehicles and they combust on the side of the road, and firefighters, many of them just say, we just let them burn until it's done, because it's harder to put them out than it is to just let it burn and be done, because of the amount of energy that is in that battery pack. So when we see that Arkansas could have enough, lithium to supply us for so many years, essentially forever in the United States, if they're able to put a recycling method into place, we have an incredibly powerful tool here in this country that can help us. And that's just going to give us a massive benefit when we look forward into the markets and when we look forward into the supply and demand curve. So just something to keep in mind. Other questions that we've been, kind of answering and looking at, we're looking at e-waste, right? So I'm reading a headline here from a Bloomberg article that I talked about. And it says, with over 68 million tons of e-waste generated annually and 60 billion worth of metals lost in waste, is this the next boom in the industry? Now, I think that it is. Here at Rockaway Recycling, we've actually just started a new online program where we are buying memory and buying CPUs through the mail, because as an R2 certified vendor, we know that a lot of these e-waste items are making their way into the garbage and not into the recycling bin. So this is going to be a really great thing for us to be able to see. Hopefully we can start to have this get, fixed in the coming years. We're going to be looking at the lithium recycling. We're going to look at how we can reuse a lot of these batteries. The metal part is relatively easy. It just depends on if it's being exported or staying domestic, and those are things that we continue to look at as well. Now, a couple of important things to mention. Gold hit all-time record highs again, week over week. We saw almost a 3% increase. And now here's something I thought was interesting. Gold prices, right, are not just moving higher because of the overall demand. There are certain countries, and I read an article about this group of the BRIC nations. I believe it was Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And they had a meeting earlier this week. And a lot of them, there was those 4 countries, and then I think a total of 13 countries altogether. And they were talking about how they can wean themselves off of the US dollar. And a lot of countries in Africa, and then some of the ones that I mentioned, want to be able to use gold as more of a hedge. And that's been one of the bigger reasons that we've seen gold prices moving like they have this year. I don't know what the overall year to date is. Virginia, if you could find just what gold prices are just to show people year to date, that'd be awesome. But gold prices have gone up this year so high that we're just seeing tremendous growth, and we're pulling it up right now. And that's not just because of the economy. That's not just because of supply and demand. That's really more of a hedge. Here, we can see here in the beginning of the year, we had gold prices around $2,000 an ounce. Let's just call it at 2,000. And today we're at 2,700. So what's that? A 35% increase year to date. I don't think that any other metal has a 35% rate of return in 2024. So, it fed itself over into silver. We saw silver prices jumping. And if you're looking to learn more about silver and gold scrap, ask any questions and we'll try to get to them. Do we have any questions? We had one question last week about alkaline batteries.
Yep.
So smaller alkaline batteries, are they worth anything in scrap? So I didn't want to just give an answer off the top of my head, so I looked into this a little bit. So generally, they're not valuable in scrap. They have very low levels of zinc and manganese. Some larger facilities may accept things like alkalines, but they're generally a negative value. And some companies that do accept them, they do it more as a favor to their customers. They're not making money on them, but generally, they're not worth a lot of money opposed to like a lithium ion battery that may have cobalt, nickel, and lead. But again, we're having problems with the refining and the recycling side of the lithium battery. So we still don't see any, but alkalines are generally not something. I don't take them at my scrapyard. I don't have any friends of mine that take them that I know of. Generally, you can get rid of them at your town. Generally, you can get rid of them maybe at like a Best Buy drop off, but overall, not a really strong item. Do we have any other questions right now? No. So scrappers, here we are, middle of October, going into November. Markets are still moving. Please ask us your questions. Sell what you have. I'm not going to sit here and hold a lot right now. We're continuing to have a quick turnover at Rockaway Recycling. And then just a quick last kind of industry thing to think about. Carbide, tungsten, nickel scrap, special alloys. We're seeing an uptick right now. Tungsten and carbide-based materials are having a nice resurgence. And a lot of that has to do with how the metals are being used. In the past, these metals have been used just for like road end mill bits or in machining parts. We're seeing an expansion of tungsten outside of just the commercial industry. So not only are we seeing it on a commercial side of things for parts, drill bits, and tips for cutting, We're also starting to see a really strong consumer section of jewelry, watches, rings, necklaces, earrings. That's a positive sign. So hopefully that continues itself and we'll be able to continue to see a lot of these prices increasing. So any questions on that, let us know. Scrappers, today is Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. Any questions? If you didn't get to it during our live feed, please let us know. Until next week, my name is Tom, and I'll scrap you later.
Thanks for watching our video. For $2.99 a month, by becoming a member, you can get access to early videos, member-only videos, merchandise discounts from our store, and priority comments that we answer before answering any other scrappers. Click the link below to learn more. Until next time, scrap you later.